innocent man, Your Honor, and I have always been an innocent man.
Imagine the cell door slamming shut behind you, knowing deep inside you are innocent. Days turn into years, years into decades. You watch life pass you by through rusted bars as the world forgets your name. Birthdays vanish, loved ones grow old, some never wait long enough to see you free, and all of this suffering because of a lie. This is not your fate, but for them, it was their reality. Today, we open the cell doors to stories soaked in injustice, heartbreak, and stolen time you can never get back. Welcome. This is Untold Crime Chronicles. Subscribe, please. Ricky Jackson was only 18 years old when his life was stolen, sentenced to death and later life in prison for a murder he did not commit. No fingerprints, no weapon, no evidence. Only the false words of a frightened 12-year-old boy pressured by police. And for 39 years, he woke up to steel bars, missed every birthday, every funeral, every moment of freedom, until the truth finally surfaced, and the same system that destroyed him was forced to set him free. In 1975, Cleveland, Ohio, was shaken by the brutal killing of Harold Franks. A money order salesman attacked outside a corner store, sprayed in the face with acid, shot twice, and robbed of his briefcase. The crime sending shockwaves through the community and placing police under immense pressure to find the killers quickly. Ricky, a young black man with no criminal record, suddenly found himself in the crosshairs of a case built entirely on lies. The prosecution's star witness was 12-year-old Eddie Vernon, who claimed he saw Ricky and two friends commit the murder. Yet there was no murder weapon, no fingerprints, no blood, no stolen items in Ricky's possession. What the jury didn't know was that Vernon hadn't seen anything. He was on a school bus blocks away, and detectives had fed him details of the crime, threatening his family and pressuring him into pointing the finger at Ricky. But in 1975, the jury believed the boy, convicting Ricky of aggravated murder and sentencing him to die in the electric chair. Police had arrested him swiftly and brutally, arriving at his home and handcuffing him in front of neighbors, treating him like the case was already solved. This was the 1970s in Cleveland, a racially charged era where a young black man accused of killing a white businessman had little hope of a fair trial. Ricky spent his first 2 years on death row, waking every morning unsure if it would be his last, until in 1977, his sentence was reduced to life in prison, a punishment that would see him spend the next decades in a small cell while the outside world moved on without him. He lost his parents, missed the births of nieces and nephews, never attended weddings or funerals, and watched friends grow old while his life was frozen in time. Despite it all, Ricky held on to hope, educating himself, reading, and believing that one day the truth would set him free. That day came nearly 4 decades later when Eddie Vernon, now a grown man, confessed to a pastor that he had lied all those years ago and never witnessed the crime. He admitted that police had coerced him, fed him the story, and threatened him into testifying. The pastor contacted the Ohio Innocence Project, whose lawyers fought tirelessly to overturn Ricky's conviction. In 2014, the state dropped all charges, and in a packed courtroom, the judge said the words Ricky had waited to hear for 39 years. "Mr. Jackson, you are free to go." The courtroom erupted in tears and applause as Ricky hugged his lawyers and the few family members still alive to see him free. After nearly 4 decades of wrongful imprisonment, he walked outside into the sunlight, a free man, receiving $3.65 million in compensation, but knowing no amount of money could restore the youth, the time, or the life stolen from him, his story forever standing as a haunting reminder of the cost of injustice. The world collapsed. It was August 13, 1991, in Brooklyn, New York. 2 correction officers, Rolando Neischer and Robert Crossan, were sitting in a parked car when 2 young men suddenly approached and opened fire. Neischer was killed instantly. Crossan was wounded but survived. In the chaos, panic, and urgency to find the killers, the police relied almost entirely on Crossan's memory. He told investigators that 2 black teenagers had done it. No physical evidence tied John to the scene, no fingerprints, no DNA, no murder weapon, nothing. John had never been in trouble before. He was at home sleeping according to his mother, but that didn't matter. Veteran NYPD Detective Louis Scarcella, already notorious for his aggressive tactics, took over the case. Scarcella and his partner went into John's Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood, pulled the 14-year-old from his bed in the middle of the night, and brought him in for questioning without his mother or a lawyer. In the lineup, Crossan, still recovering from his injuries, pointed to John. It was enough for prosecutors. The entire case rested on that shaky identification. There was no further investigation into other suspects, no effort to test the bullets, and no follow-up on John's alibi. The trial was swift. The jury barely deliberated. And in 1992, John Bunn was convicted of second-degree murder and attempted murder, sentenced to 20 years to life. He was sent to adult prison at the age of 17 after spending years in juvenile detention. Life inside was brutal. He was beaten, humiliated, and forced to fight for survival. Yet he refused to admit to a crime he didn't commit, holding on to the belief that the truth would eventually surface. In the meantime, Detective Scarcella's name kept appearing in other wrongful conviction cases. Years later, investigative reporters and the Brooklyn Conviction Review Unit began reopening cases tied to Scarcella. John's case came under scrutiny. Attorneys discovered that Scarcella had used the same questionable eyewitness identification methods in multiple cases and had ignored evidence that pointed away from his chosen suspects. In John's case, the identification was deeply flawed. Crossan admitted years later that he wasn't sure, and there was no other evidence against him after nearly 2 decades of fighting from inside prison, and after serving 17 years before being paroled, John's conviction was officially overturned in 2016 by Brooklyn Supreme Court Justice Sean D. Simpson. The judge declared that John had been wrongfully convicted based on false testimony and police misconduct. John broke down in tears in court, saying, "I don't understand how the system let me down like this." Freedom came with challenges. He had no job history, no education beyond prison programs, and years of trauma. But he dedicated himself to giving back, founding the nonprofit A Voice for the Unheard to promote literacy among incarcerated youth. He began speaking publicly about the dangers of wrongful convictions and the need for reform. His story became a symbol of resilience in the face of injustice. But it also stood as a haunting example of how easily the system can take an innocent child, strip him of his future, and nearly bury him alive in a cell for a crime he didn't commit. This is Untold Crime Chronicles, where every story demands justice. Don't just watch. Please subscribe.